Well, Coasters, another interview, this time a coaster, all in relation to grounded Kiwis. Kiwis, New Zealanders, coasters with passports that guarantee them the right to enter and the right to exit New Zealand. Today's guest is Thérèse Gibbons. Thérèse is from a very well-known Greymouth family. She's a Malloy. In many ways, coastal royalty. So if anyone can pull a string to get through the MIQ lottery, Thérèse and a family would be able to do it. But it seems not. Clearly, she doesn't have the contacts. Not like the Wiggles, not like the DJ that come in 3 times, not like the sports teams. And in fact, someone made the comment that obviously not like anyone who's a government minister, or is there a government minister out there that has family on the ground offshore that can't get in? Be interesting to know, wouldn't it? So Thérèse has been attempting to get her daughter and her husband into New Zealand to come home to see mum and dad. She missed the wedding because of lockdown. That's fair enough. She's not complaining about that. She missed her daughter's wedding. Had to watch it by Zoom. And then the process of getting the daughter home. Months and months of frustration, different stories of a government that just doesn't care. Now, those of you that know Thérèse know that she's got an incredible ability to bring people together. She's doing that at Lake Canary at the moment, where they're on holiday. They have a family batch. But she's also got what I call the West Coast ability to say it the way it is. Well, folks, meet Thérèse Gibbons. She's a top lady. Well, coasters, I'm at beautiful Lake Canary and on a stunning coast day. And I thought it was a great opportunity to catch up with Thérèse Gibbons because she made a comment on grounded Kiwis in relation to getting her daughter home and her husband and the frustration that she'd had with it. And it really struck a bell because for those of you that don't know Thérèse, she's a Malloy. It's kind of West Coast royalty. So I thought we've got to have, don't laugh. I thought I've got to come and say hello. Thérèse, thanks first of all, thanks for seeing me today. 6 months trying to get your daughter home.
Yep,
Why?
Well, initially the system was that you just kept refreshing the MIQ website basically to get access. Millie and her husband Tybee were in the UK, and of course you're trying to refresh in the middle of the night and you're trying to work a full-time job and it's impossible, and she ended up paying $1,000 to a guy to do the job for her. So she paid this guy, he couldn't get a spot for her, it just kept going on and on and on. Then they introduced a new system, the lottery system, where you put your name in, and at that time you could go in individually. So Millie went in, Toby went in. I think the first time one of them got 25,000 on the list and one got 19,000. They were just so far off. I think at that stage there might have been 3,000 rooms being allocated. It became really depressing and really, Millie found it really personal. It became more than just, trying to keep the restrictions. It became very much New Zealanders don't want us home, or the government don't want us home, even though we're New Zealanders. It became way too personal, and she took it personally. It became a really big issue for us. It affects them because they think that New Zealanders dislike them, and that's probably the biggest thing for us, was watching the situation where New Zealanders were being vitriolic and cruel and nasty against New Zealanders wanting to come home.
On social media?
Absolutely.
Aren't they a bunch of mongrels?
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. And the comments being made by New Zealanders about New Zealanders, I couldn't believe it. I just thought, and there were things like, well, they had the opportunity to come home. There were differing circumstances for people. There were a lot of reasons why people couldn't come home immediately. I'm not prepared to go into the reasons why my daughter and her husband couldn't come home immediately, but they were valid, good reasons.
Yep.
So we tried desperately. The second one of them was again in the 20,000s. I think she might have got to 12,000. The third one, Toby, got closer than she did. Still nowhere near. It just went on, and every time it happens, you get more down and more depressed and more worried and more stressed.
And they've both got Kiwi passports.
No, Toby doesn't, but Millie does.
So she's got a Kiwi passport.
Yeah. So
Goodness
he had
me.
a critical person visitor visa. So because he's married to her, he was able to get into the country. So it just became, it was horrendous.
So,
And then one day, after I think we were on the 6th try, the room allocation was 4,200 and she came in at 3,300. By that stage, you weren't allowed to go in separately though. They changed the rules again and you could only go in as one party. So they were on it together, so it was only one attempt. She came in at 3,300. So we knew she was going to get a spot, but we didn't know the date. So there was a range of maybe 3 months that she could have got. We, as a family, on Messenger, counting down with her, watching as she got lower and lower and lower till she got to pick a spot, and she got the 20th of December. So they had Christmas in MIQ, which is fine. We didn't care. As long as they got home, nothing else mattered. And she got out on the 30th. So they're supposed to be 7 days and then 3 days in self-isolation. However, they ended up on a flight where someone tested positive, so that made them close contact. So they had no idea where on the plane the person was, because there weren't many people on the plane. But she ended up having 10 days in MIQ, no problem at all.
what a nightmare.
Well, the nightmare was that from the very beginning, we have wanted to pay. We have never felt that this should fall on the taxpayer. So we've always said, whatever it took, we would pay to get her home. And that is not possible. That is the stupid situation with this insane government, where they've set up this MIQ system with restricted numbers, but if a private hotel wants to set itself up with the same requirements, the same security, where people are allowed to pay, bypass the government system, so that frees up that system for others, and that's what we wanted. But Jacinda said no, of course, because that would mean there would be the haves and the have-nots. We're not allowed to have that in this world anymore, so we need to make everyone fight for a few spots. And it is a fight, and it's a depressing fight, and it gets people down, and it gets people frustrated, and it gets people sad. And we're not even a bad case. We're a family that just hadn't seen our daughter for 2.5 years. We missed her wedding. We were all booked, 21 of us are booked to go to her wedding in March 2020.
Yeah.
No, sorry, the wedding was May. We were all booked. Of course, it turned to custard in February, March. And so she got married without us, so that hurt. Our only daughter married without us. We had to watch by video link. It was horrendous. And then being unable to actually get her home was just it was just unfair. And all we wanted to do was pay. Put her into a system where we would pay.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
The other thing that is coming through loud and clear from a number of people is the inconsistency of how people get in. For instance, the Wiggles man. I mean, he got in. This DJ got in. He's been in 3 times.
The Wiggles didn't bring 5 Wiggles. They bought all these extras, all the crew, the whole 9 yards. There was probably 30 or 40 of them, and that took 30 or 40 New Zealanders out of the play for, who trying to see dying parents, dying siblings. It's an absolute disgrace. It's a national shame that people cannot get home when their parents are dying.
The thing that's coming through loud and clear is that the New Zealand passport has used to be the passport that everybody wanted, and it would take you anywhere in the world. And here we are now with a situation where that right to enter New Zealand and exit New Zealand, which is the principal right, it's democracy.
It's written on the New Zealand passport.
It's written there. And of course, the government can legislate to override that on a temporary basis. And maybe in early 2020 it was okay, but it's 22 months now, and we've got people all around the world that can't come home to their home.
Look, Millie and Tybee are double vaxxed. They've had their boosters. They had a pre-departure test. They had a day 1, a day 3, a day 6, and a day 9 test. They had the day 9 test result, and they made them stay 2 more nights. And they weren't even being tested again. So once they got their clear day 9 test, they made them stay 2 more nights.
That's bizarre.
It is bizarre.
So who makes the,
They wouldn't let them out. Millie contacted them and said, look, we've had our last final clearance, and no, you can't go. They had two more nights they had to stay there after their final clearance. Like, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
Trace, one of the things that we've been trying to do at Coasters Club is to say to these people who are watching these videos and who are in grounded Kiwis, that actually we do care. We do care. You're not dealing with, the general population. You get plonkers who put up terrible comments on Facebook. I have a great plan for them. I push delete and then I ban them. They're of no value to anyone. And it's really important for people offshore to understand that we're right behind you. We do care. We want you home. I mean, imagine if you or me or someone else went offshore and got kidnapped or got stranded. The government would send a plane to pick us up.
Yeah.
But there's been, I talked to some people from Saudi Arabia yesterday, and they were saying that the Saudi Arabian government, they put planes on to come and pick up their residents from all around the place, New Zealand, all around, because they had a passport and because they care. Have we got to the stage where we have a government that doesn't care? Or is it just incompetent?
Yeah, we have. We have this obsession. And I think the really big problem is that there is a impression that New Zealanders who are overseas want free access to New Zealand with no restrictions in place. And I don't believe that for 1 minute. We didn't expect her to get into the country and not be restricted in what she could do. We expect there to be some form of isolation system. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying free reign, open it up, We accept that. However, the situation at the moment and the ability to get into the country is not good enough. There should be situations. There were 150 business people offered, MIQ spots with self-isolation at home in their own homes. That needs to be broadened, with restrictions. Put an ankle bracelet on them. It would be a damn sight cheaper for the taxpayer to have an ankle bracelet on people in their own homes than it would be to put them into an MIQ system and feed them 3 meals a day and and everything else, all of the other costs that go with that. Put an ankle bracelet on them. It's a simple process. That's exactly how they could control where they are and what they're doing.
And you look at people out there, like I've got a second granddaughter on the Gold Coast. I haven't met her yet. She's nearly 2.
Yep.
And as you can imagine, my wife's giving me total grief about it, but I can't do anything about it. We've got so many people who have had something tragic happen in the family, and they can't come home.
I've been on that Grounded Kiwis Facebook page for a long time now, and it is heartbreaking. It is incredibly heartbreaking. Some of the terrible situations, parents dying in hospital while a person is in MIQ and not getting an exemption to get out. It's unbelievable how cruel, and it is cruel, this government is being. They are cruel. They are nothing short of that, because they don't care. Chris Hipkins stands up there and he actually makes statements that are not even true. He says things that are not true, and the media don't hold him to account. You've got a few really good, strong journalists who try, but they just get shut down by Jacinda Ardern and him. They get away with murder. The things they say, the sweeping generalisations about people trying to get in this country, just blows me away. And it gets picked up on groups like Grounded Kiwi. They pick up straight away when things are said that aren't true, but they get away with it because, we've got this media that's been paid off.
It's crazy.
And stand up to them.
Trace, if you had a message to those people who are out there stranded, who have got, who can't get into the country, who've got a New Zealand passport, who've got every right to be here, what would the message be?
It's easy for me to say just hold on, and chin up, and hopefully it'll happen for you. But that's actually no consolation to those people, because we've been there, and we only had 6 months, of trying. There's people who've had a lot longer than 6 months trying to get into this country. It's wrong, but I just don't know what to say to them, because they shouldn't be in this situation.
And as a final note, how about a message to the government?
Have a heart, because you haven't got one at the moment. Chris Hipkins and Jacinda Ardern, Grant Robertson, stop generalising, stop saying things that aren't true, and face up to the million of Kiwis who are not in New Zealand.
There we go, coasters. Thérèse Gibbons, we're at Lake Canary, and yeah, some very interesting comments there. Thank you so much, Thérèse. It's really appreciated.
No problem.
Well, coasters, pretty straight shooting coming from Thérèse Gibbons at a beautiful Lake Canary. There's clearly problems with the system, and yet there are people out there ticking boxes and not thinking about what they're doing. But there's an old saying, and that is that the fish always rots from the head. So what we're dealing with are Kiwis with a passport, often taxpayers in New Zealand, who can't get home. Their passport guarantees them entry and exit to and from New Zealand. The Bill of Rights reinforces that. Now, of course, government has the ability in extreme emergencies to put in place legislation to remove that right on a temporary basis. And in March, April, May of 2020, they did the right thing. However, it's 22 months ago. The last 12 months, a whole range of people have been impacted in the most disgusting and tragic ways. People who have been unable to see their dying parents, their dying family. People have been released from MIQ to visit a dying father, and then picked up by a van and taken back for a day, during which time the father died. That's because the box said, despite having all of the clear tests, you had to do one more day. The people who have gone over to see their grandchildren, pensioners who've had their pension cut, they're going through a myriad of obstacles. Now you could say, well, why isn't it? Why hasn't it been released? Why hasn't the legislation been reversed? I mean, the first interview we did, the gentleman we interviewed said, we must be the only country in New Zealand that puts, the only country in the world that puts its MIQ facilities in the most dense populated areas. I thought about that. Why is that? Of course, when the security breaks down, chances of it spreading very, very quickly is just super high. So many people around. I look at things sometimes a little bit differently, and I look at COVID as something that's arrived, something that's going. It will go. I'm pretty confident in 2022 it'll be out of here. I looked in 2001 at anthrax. We're all going to die. The government of the day claimed that because of the actions they took, we didn't all die. Awesome. 2002, the West Nile virus. Do you remember that one? It was going to spread throughout the world. Government of the day said, because of the actions we took, we were safe in New Zealand. I looked at 2003, at SARS. It was going to wipe out millions of people. Government of the day claimed that because of the actions they took, they saved millions of people. 2005, bird flu. 2006, E. coli. 2009, swine flu. 2014, the Ebola virus. Remember how bad that was going to be? 2016, the Zika virus. And then in 2020, was Corona-19, COVID-19. Reality is, won't be the last one. It's come, it's done its dash. You wait and see. We need to tidy up the mess that has been created within our legislation and our democracy urgently. Because the people who are being impacted are not only offshore, the people right throughout New Zealand. Now, if you're one of them, it's impacted by fly in, fly out position, inability to maintain and do your job, working for an offshore corporation, inability to travel for your company, inability to see your grandkids. Put a comment in the bottom, share this post, because we need to throw the light on this issue. The issue can be sorted quite simply, but it comes down to democracy at the end of the day. And you can't take away from New Zealanders the rights enshrined in their passport. You can't do that. Because if you do, the New Zealand passport will no longer be the passport of choice around the world. It's already been badly impacted in the last 18 months. So there we go, coasters. We've got a lot more of these interviews, which I'm going to play. And some of them really, really sad. But big thanks to Thérèse Gibbons. She's never been frightened to say a piece. And I admire her for that. Catch you later.